Shooting a jewelry commercial may seem simple, but it's more than just pointing a camera at a shiny rock. Between lighting, angles, and composition, all these things play an important part of making jewelry look good on video. You want the bling bling to bling bling, right? After filming a few jewelry commercials myself, I've picked up several lessons along the way. In this video today, I'm going to be sharing you my process in shooting these types of things and hopefully sharing some of my mistakes so that you can avoid them and make your products pop. Hey guys, if you don't know me, my name is Jacob Tran, director and DP based in LA. And when I get hired for commercial shoots, it's typically like fashion or beauty. But this time I was hired to shoot a jewelry commercial. This brand approached me to shoot their main campaign video because they didn't want it to be just product focused. They wanted to include people there. And because I knew how to shoot people, it was a no-brainer. The brief was straightforward. We just had to create our visuals based off of the vibe of the collection. The collection was inspired by florals. We wanted to invoke a feeling and a vibe of something that was fantasy and fantastical. And we centered around this whole thing about being romantic, but also being ethereal and dreamy. Because we didn't want this to be an only product-focused video, we knew we had to bring in models to help support this narrative of a soft, calming, and also romantic vibe throughout the entire video. Whenever creating commercials that involves people as a subject, you almost want to put it in the mindset of how can you guide the viewer to help them be the person they want to be. And what I mean about that is whenever you are watching a commercial, the ones that hit the hardest are the ones that inspire you to act upon something. Before I even touched the camera, pre-production was something that I knew we had to hammer down. And because we wanted to go for a soft, calm, and romantic vibe, I felt like creating a mood board was probably the first action step that we did. So we found a bunch of reference images and we put it all together. That way we can determine the look for the film. After creating a mood board with the client, I learned the client didn't really work much with motion compared to how much they do work with stills. So with that in mind, the next thing that I did was actually sketch out a storyboard about what I felt like the commercial could be like in all the stories, the shots, and the angles. And even though I can't sketch like my life depended on it, this really helped the client envision what the final product would be like. Sketching up a storyboard can help instill confidence in your clients because if they're really not too familiar with your vision, you're able to explain it visually. This will help eliminate a lot of variables that you might be stressing over for, say, during production and even post-production. All I did was borrow my sister's iPad and did a couple sketches on Procreate. Because the shoot is centered around florals, we needed our sets and backgrounds to match the themes of the collection. With 3 different sets, I thought that was the perfect number to create enough variety in your actual video. The 3 backdrops that we had was 1, using a floral pattern backdrop, 2, a simple color backdrop, and 3, finding an actual outside location. I'm so happy that we were able to shoot outside because at first we were just gonna do it all in the studio. But sometimes whenever you're just shooting video in a studio, it can sometimes feel too clinical. But adding that extra variety and element to an outdoor location can really help propel the story. And since we were shooting about florals, outside is literally nature, so it worked out so well. And I'm so happy that it worked out. The gear that I used for this shoot was the Sony FX3, and when it came to choosing lenses, I knew I had to choose it based off of whether shooting people or shooting product. When it came to shooting people, I chose to use the Dizio Catazoom lens for the lens characteristics because it was like a clean look, especially for the vibe that we're going for. And also I used the Laowa's 12mm zero distortion lens to help create a larger than life feeling whenever you're shooting people. When it came to shooting product, I knew that I only needed to get 1 lens, and that was to get a macro lens. So for this shoot, I used the Sony 90mm macro lens. Macro shots are really great for showing textures and details, and it allows the viewer to view this small object really up close. A tip that I have for shooting macro jewelry shots is make sure the jewelry is clean of any smudges and fingerprints. I would even say going as far as wearing cloth gloves when handling these types of products and making sure you're able to place it in place without it having any type of smudges or imperfections. When it came to determining the lighting setup, I knew that I had to match the lighting with the vibe, and because we sourced reference images, we knew that we wanted to go for a diffused light look. This made it super flattering for the models, and also it gave a really clean look for the actual jewelry itself. Because jewelry is an inanimate object and when we're shooting motion, something I did to bring it to life was actually moving lights around. Utilizing a small hand portable light like the Aperture MCs that I use, you're able to move the light around and make the bling bling actually bling bling. There's a lot of reflective surfaces, whether it's like the actual metal of the band or the actual jewelry itself. There's a lot of curves, edges, and surfaces that light can catch on. And if you're able to move your light around, it could really sparkle and pop. This was super cool, but something that I want to try next time is maybe utilizing a few more lights and moving it around all at the same time. Whenever it comes to shooting people with product, a thing that I learned is always capture lifestyle angles, because these types of angles are the things that actually gives the viewer context and how the product should be used, or in this case, how the product is worn. This helps the customer envision what they would look like potentially if they were the ones that were actually wearing the jewelry. In the same vein of considering lighting and how this is essentially still life, the other thing you should probably consider is movement. For video, subtle movements, whether with the camera or the product itself, can make the jewelry feel alive. Whenever I'm catching myself shooting too much on tripod, I always try to make an effort to take the camera off the tripod and just move the camera around, give it some motion, and figure out different angles that I'm not able to get with a tripod. Something that I would want to try another time is potentially getting an electronic slider and creating really nice tracking cinematic shots. Also, another thing that I would do to create a little bit more motion is potentially getting a Lazy Susan or an electronic turntable. That way you can get a lot of different angles and motion for the actual product itself. Since we had access to actual flowers and different plants and things like that, another thing to give motion is to actually use objects as foreground. In this case, we did almost like a reveal type situation with leaves in front of the camera and then opening up where it shows our models. Also, utilizing a leaf blower can help create motion in the model's hairs and stuff like that, and it makes it really fun and cinematic. The background that you choose is like setting the stage for a play. It helps tell a part of your story. Whenever it comes to shooting people against backdrops, the biggest complaint that I have, especially for videos since we're shooting a lot of horizontal clips, is that the backdrops are just not wide enough. If you're shooting on a tripod, something that you could always consider is utilizing generative fill to extend your backdrops. The biggest tips that I have is make sure the background is some sort clean and neutral, as well as keeping your subject in center, because I think the thing that can make it hard is if your subject is moving around too much and there's a lot of shadow cast, editing shadows and keeping the background realistic should be your top priority. With this technique, I was able to get really beautiful wide shots, especially with our models against the backdrops in the studio. I knew from storyboarding that I was going to shoot a lot of tight shots, so I knew it was really important to do these types of background extensions. That way I could get these wide shots to help curate the vibe and give variety. Filming jewelry commercials may have its challenges, but it's all part of the creative process. I hope these lessons help you avoid some mistakes, and if you have any questions, feel free to comment down below, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye!